Okay, morning everybody. Today's session is going to be drilling into how you add a site to FBIS. And this is obviously very important when you want to start adding data so that you ensure it's done in the right way. And I want to just chat through various sort of nuances and things you should be aware of so that the data that's added, the site that's created, is as accurate as possible. So the first thing I want to mention is when you want to practice this workflow, please make sure you're on the testing site. You can know it's a testing site, and it is again shown in the help tab of FBIS, but it says testing, and then you can differentiate that from the live site because it's got green dots representing sites as opposed to the live site, which has yellow dots. Okay, so let's then go through the workflow for adding a site. So the first thing I'd like to say is on the top of our menu bar is there's a section that says Add Site, and literally you click on that tab. This then opens up a form, Add a Location Site, and you'll see that when you open it up, it's all blank, with the exception of me as the owner, since I'm the one who's logged in. So there are two ways to start creating a site. The first is to copy and populate the latitude and longitude. So I'm going to quickly just copy 2 latitude and longitudes that I have stored to show you how that works. And that'll allow us to go to the site. You then click Update Coordinate, and it'll create a site in the area that you've just indicated. So what I want to show quickly now is if you zoom into that site, you can see, you can confirm, have I actually put the coordinate in the right part of the river? And indeed, this is correct. It's slightly off, so I'm going to move it a little bit up. Sometimes easier to navigate with lat longs to your site, but you can also just use the map. And what pops up is an option. It tells you any sites that are within 500 meters of your site. And it gives you the option whether you want to add your data to the existing site, in which case you would say use an existing site, or it gives you the option to create a new site. Now, in this case, my site is not really exactly where the other sites are. So this is the one within 500 meters. It's actually downstream of the N1 on the Molenaars River. So I'm going to choose Create New Site. Okay, once I've created a new site, the first thing I do is ask FBIS to fetch the river name. Now, a reminder, this is based on the 1 in 500,000 DWS rivers coverage. The names are currently mostly in Afrikaans. Not that that's a problem, but what you'll get back is the Afrikaans name of the river, the Molenaars Rivier. One thing to bear in mind, if you wish to update the name of the river for reasons such as you prefer Molenaars without the Rivier, or if in fact that 1 in 500,000 DWS rivers coverage is not showing your site accurately or river accurately, you can update it. But where it comes in a very, very useful is if you're putting a site on one of these small tributaries that isn't named in the river's coverage, what it's going to do is grab the name from the nearest named river, and that obviously isn't right. Or it will actually leave it blank in most instances. And that's when you, as the user, when you create your site, can put in the original river name. And by default, FBIS uses this name both when displaying the river name on the dashboard, but also when generating the site code. Okay, the next step to do is to then say, generate site code. So if I zoom in, those of you familiar with the River Health Program will know that we've got a standard way of naming sites, which uses the secondary catchment code, followed by the first 4 letters of the river name, and then the first 5 letters of the location. Now in FBIS, we recommend that you allow this to do it automatically. So it will get the second catchment code as well as the river name, MOLE, and then it just provides a number, a five-digit number for the sites in sequential order. You can put the original site code. So say this was site 3 in the study paper that I'm going to upload with this data. You can include that, and it can be a number, it could be a code such as that, it could be a Molenaars 3, etc. The next thing to do is to fetch the geomorphological zone. So many of you will know that in 2008, colleagues such as Junita Moorman and Mike Silberbauer and DWS created a digital terrain model that used slope to classify our 1 in 500,000 DWS rivers coverage by geomorphological zone. And these included these following zones. So by default, it grabs the geomorphological zone. If, however, you have been to the site and you've assessed it, and the zone, because bear in mind the zone is based on terrain models, and there are sometimes inaccuracies in that, you are able as the user to override that or create a refined geomorphological zone. So in this case, we don't need to, because in fact, I've been to the site and I've validated that it is in fact an upper foothill. So I'm quite happy to accept upper foothill. But if in fact I had validated it as a lower foothill, I would include this as the refined geomorphological zone. Now, this is really important when you want to generate ecological categories for interpreting SAS data, because you will recall that the ecological category is essentially the ecoregion level 1 combined with a sort of a clumped versions of geomorphological zones. Now, if I quickly open up the live FBIS and I zoom into this river system, I've turned on the layer for geomorphological zones so we can have a look at it. And if I look where I've created my site, it's literally as the N1 comes back, you can see here that in fact, this is a blue, which if you turn on the legend is in fact the upper foothill. And that is in agreement with what I had included on my site. So going back to where we're adding our site on the testing site, if it's different, you have the option to change it here. But if you're in agreement, you just leave it as the original, because this will change the way the data is interpreted in terms of SAS ecological categories. A description is always useful, so I'm going to say downstream of the second ridge crossing in N1. I am the owner of the site. As I've mentioned before, if it was somebody else, such as Chantel, you punch in their names, you include the person, and then that site can be allocated to them. This is especially useful if you are adding data as a data capture for somebody else. But I'm going to keep it as my name because I'm creating this site. Then we have the option to add a site image. You do this by clicking Browse. And quickly zoom back to where your photographs are. I've just put in some for the training here. And it actually is a photograph of the Molenaars. Going to upload that. And you just double check you've got everything right. So the coordinates are right. You've double checked the location, you're happy with that. The river name is correct. I've put in the original river name, generated the site code, I've put in my original site code, fetched the data for the geomorphological zone, provided a site description. And once everything's been checked, I agree to add the site. And this then takes a few minutes or a few seconds really. before that site is then added. Okay, and you'll get a message saying new site has been successfully added. What I'd like to do now is just go to our dashboard and close it up and just go using our filter, put in the site we've just created. Just remember, sometimes there's an extra space. You must just remove that space, then the site comes up. You can see we haven't added any occurrence records, so the number of records are 0, but the site does exist. And we can go to that site and have a look at it. Okay, so essentially what you can see here is the site overview dashboard giving the site code, the description, the coordinates, the ecoregion level, the geomorphological zone, and the river name. Now these two, a reminder, if you have an original river's name, it'll use that as the default above the DWS layer. And if you've provided a refined geomorphological zone, it'll use this both in terms of what's displayed on the dashboards, but also in terms of what is displayed on the SAS, or what is used to interpret the SAS data in terms of ecological category. Okay, and if you add a site and you discover that you've made a typo, or actually the position is slightly wrong, you as the owner can go into the site and you can very easily edit the data of the site. It's all returned. Say we wanted to say the 3rd bridge crossing, it wasn't actually the 1st. Then you can change it and you can save it again. Or if you wanted to open a second image, you can also add that in. So I'm going to save that. What it then tells you is the site has been successfully updated, and you're then free to add any of the data that you would then like to add. This training session is fairly short, so I'm very happy to open it up for questions if any of you have. Thanks so much for joining.